The Working Artist Project is brought to you by Second Line Arts Collective. Learn how you can support at secondlinearts.org.
We're creating a platform for those who are curious, one that tells the story from the artist's perspective. Moments in time, captured from the innovators who are reshaping dance, music, theater, and the visual arts. This is the Working Artist Project.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Working Artist Project. Today is January 3rd, 2022. Happy New Year's, Darrian. How you doing?
Oh, Greg, Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm good. I'm glad to be back, man. We took about a month off, which was much needed. And
Much needed.
Yeah, bro. Every Monday night for about 4 weeks, Greg, I went to sleep at 8 o'clock. Can you believe it?
I can believe it because I did the same exact thing and it was marvelous. I have to say, I just in my old age, I have become very fond of going to bed early.
That's right. Hey, if y'all don't know, tonight, me and Greg, well, at least me, I'm the old man on the show tonight, and we got a very special guest, Mr. Benny Benack, all the way from Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is actually a cool place. I don't know if you've been there, Greg. You been over there?
I can't remember.
I've
been to so many places I don't even know.
It's cooler than it sounds, man. It's actually kind of beautiful, man. But
hey, you gotta throw props up to Pittsburgh, though. You know, Roy Eldridge, Art Blakey, there's some cats from Pittsburgh, and of course we're gonna talk to Benny tonight. And I think Benny comes from a musical family that has made a big impact in the Pittsburgh area. So I'm excited to get a chance to hear more about that great city.
Yeah, bro. When I was reading about his family, I was, it always makes me think about New Orleans when cats come from a musical family, because it's kind of rare, to hear that anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like 3 generations of musicians. That's crazy.
I have to say is this: when I listen to Benny play, I think to myself, damn, that motherfucker's killing. He must come from a musical family.
Benny got the cheat codes, y'all. So look, without further ado, let's welcome Benny Benack to the Working Artist Project. What up, Benny?
Hey, you guys hear me? What's going on?
Yeah, we hear you, baby.
Yes. Well, thank you for the Pittsburgh plug. I'm very prideful about the lineage, the history in Pittsburgh. So I like I dig what you said, man. It's like for kind of the size of the city it is, and for kind of the scope of where it is in Western Pennsylvania, there's actually a lot there. There's a lot of heart and a lot of culture there for, kind of being like a smaller sized city, and a lot of cats did come from Pittsburgh. So, I'm always repping it. As a matter of fact, I got my man, Ben Roethlisberger, his final home game is I'm going to be watching that after the interview. So hopefully people listen back and, the Steelers got the win. We'll see.
Oh, didn't Ben Roethlisberger ride a motorcycle without a helmet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man, that was a good 15 years ago or so. So he had a lot of transgressions in his youth, but really tonight we're just celebrating his play on the field.
Okay. All right.
We're not going to get into any of that. It's a family show. It's a family show.
The family show. Hey man, I got a theory. Once an idiot, always an idiot, man. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, you might be right. We can love the Warrior without loving them off the arena.
Oh man, Dilla, we jazz musicians, so that we know a lot about that.
Man, that's true.
Wow, 2022 is going to be real. Shit.
Oh man,
not holding back at all, man. My apologies. I didn't realize there was a Monday Night Football game during our interview, man. My sincerest apologies.
No worries. That's what the TiVo is for. I got it recorded. I'm gonna be good. Oh, okay.
Wrapping my Saints gear.
All right. Well, I thought they were gonna bring back Drew Brees for a minute there. They were talking about it.
Hey man, we can dream. Maybe in 4 or 5 years we'll bring them back.
Yeah, right. There you go.
But Benny, man, let's start at the top, man. So you're from Pittsburgh. So what was it like growing up and kind of getting your feet wet as a musician in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, it in many respects it really prepared me for the life that I would have in New York City. And I always say I feel like I got a head start, and I was very fortunate in that way because my summer job growing up, other friends of mine would work at the YMCA or work at the driving range or work in a movie theater. And my summer job was, playing club dates with my dad, playing weddings and playing some private parties and occasionally getting to play clubs and whatnot. And I was kind of in that gigging mode, like hanging in the horn section with the Cats from the time I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. So I really kind of was always the young guy and was always surrounded by older musicians and my dad and his buddies. And, that taught me to kind of, just shut up and follow their lead and try and be humble and learn from those guys. And by the time I went to the Manhattan School of Music, that after high school, that was what brought me to New York City. I had a little bit of decorum. I knew a little bit about how to conduct myself if I go out to a jam session or if I'm on a gig in a big band with some older musicians. And, I felt like I kind of had some on the job training before I set foot in New York. And, we could have a whole conversation about, what that kind of means for young people coming into the music and, some of the kind of unwritten rules and kind of etiquette on how to conduct yourself. I feel very fortunate. I kind of got a head start on those lessons.
What's the one thing you learned from Haggin, or what's like one important thing that you learned from Haggin with those cats in that generation that helped you?
Man, well, one thing that is really big in my household, growing up on the bandstand with my dad, was that because we were playing a lot of club dates, we were playing private parties, we were playing weddings, we were playing things like that. It is, you want to create music on the highest level, but playing somebody's wedding at a country club, it is not art music, exclusively, right? It's like you have to read the room, and if you're losing people on the dance floor, you got to be thinking while the song is going on, what's the next song? We got to get people back on the dance floor. They haven't served the salads yet. We can't lose them. So there's always this element of not pandering to an audience, but just being aware of the audience's experience. And that's something that I think has served me well as I've become a band leader in my own right. And that was something that I kind of just, I guess, got through osmosis, observing that as a young person. And I can't shake it. I'm in New York City and I play at a jam session at Smalls every week. And there's a part of me that wants to just be super cool and act like a cool jazz musician. And then there's a part of me that just can't help it and has to, scat on a blues at the end of the night. Like I can't take that part of who I am out of the music. So, I don't try and quiet it. I try and just be myself.
Yeah, that's dope, man. Coming from the South, I'm from Mississippi, and that group element of music is very apparent in the South. And sometimes you lose that up here in the Northeast. So it's beautiful for me to hear you say that, like I hate when I go to a concert and people are just playing at me,
Right.
versus participating with me, with the audience. You know what I mean? It's like if you with your lady, you don't want to just be there by yourself. You don't want to be so into what you're doing that she's not entertained or your significant other's not entertained, man. So it's super important to have. It's like that symbiotic relationship. You know what I mean? And some people sometimes it's like that Louis Armstrong thing where Cass was like, oh man, this dude is like, what's he doing? He's shucking and jiving, but actually he was bringing the people to his world, to his universe, right? And that's kind of what you do. You do something special too, man. I think not a lot of people are into like the crooner energy, right? Am I right about that? I feel like that's kind of, you get some big inspiration from people in that idiom.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some elements of kind of that character, people think of, like Dean Martin kind of swaggering around on stage, or obviously Frank Sinatra. But, there is a little element of, you can have the same dialogue, the same discussion as everyone's talking about James Bond, how like Daniel Craig's retiring and they're like, well, do we need to mix up James Bond? Do we have to have another British white guy who, makes quips and, drinks cocktails, and it, kind of glorifying this sort of dated kind of idea of this type of entertainer, and I think growing up at the time that I did, Harry Connick Jr. was really big on the scene. It was like before Michael Bublé came around, but obviously seeing the kind of success that he's had commercially, and seeing, early 2000s when he came about, was discovered by David Foster, and, like seeing that world while simultaneously, studying from Sean Jones and wanting to play like Freddie Hubbard and wanting to, play in a jazz club, having both of those worlds kind of exist simultaneously for me. I like to think that I have only taken like the good parts of the kind of crooner energy, minus the like smarminess or, the parts that are cancelable in 2022. I'm not trying to romanticize any of the, kind of stickier sides of that thing, but I can't help it. I like to wear a nice suit and have a glass of whiskey in my hand while I sing,
Yeah, you're a comedian too, man. I see you in it, man. Is that something that you developing seriously, or is that just like you just naturally a funny motherfucker?
Yeah. Well, I think that the way that it comes naturally is that as we get older and we get more comfortable in who we are on stage and off stage, more of your personality comes out, right? It gets amplified. And I definitely had my time, in New York City, in every scene that I've been a part of, where there's a time and a place. And if you're the new guy on the block and you're coming in and you're trying to, showboat and sing and smile and crack all these jokes and everything, it's you kind of have to earn that, I feel like. And, I had some lessons when I was younger where, for example, I remember being in this trumpet competition. I forget which one, because I basically won all of them. So it's hard for me to remember which one. I think not the big one though. Not the monk. Marquise got me on that one. He was the best man that day for sure. But I remember I was in one of these competitions, and for lack of a better word, however it broke out that year, it was like the third time I had done the competition, and the other two times there was definitely an older cat that dealt with the trumpet way stronger than I did, and whatever place I came in, I deserved it. But this year, I was like on the older side because it was my third time. It was obvious that I was like far and away the baddest cat. So I almost blew it because the judges' comments were like, not even about what I was playing, but talking about my attitude and kind of like that I was just overdoing it. Like I was too confident. I was too comfortable. I was talking in between songs, and it was supposed to be like a 12-minute set. And I was treating it like, it was the late set, and I was just talking to my friends, and it was like, basically like I wasn't treating that situation with the kind of, integrity that it deserves. So, that was a lesson learned, when to dial it back, when it's cool to kind of let the guard down and crack some jokes and bust on the guys in the band, or, do some crowd work, and when it's time to be serious, and take care of the music. And that still is something that's a balance that I try and find, to this very day. And there are some musicians who play with me who they will remain nameless, but there's definitely, one cat in particular that if I'm like talking too much in between songs, I'm like doing stand up, he'll like come in with the playoff music. Like he'll just like start playing the next song, get the rhythm section to play a vamp to kind of just be like, all right, bro, wrap it up. Let's get back to the music,
Wow.
I mean, I think that's an important part of the entire package too, because I think a lot of us forget that we are ultimately putting on a show, and the moments in between songs are still part of the show, and it's not an opportunity to like tune up and take a 5-minute break and like think in your head what tune you're going to play. So I always thoroughly enjoy laughing. I enjoy thinking about shit. So I think that's definitely something that I think people could incorporate into their music. of course you want to be appropriate with the time and place, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, right. Live by the sword, die by the sword,
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning a bunch of competitions and things like that. And when I was reading up on your bio, I read that, you did partake in the monk competition. You also recently did the Sarah Vaughan competition. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on maybe like the importance those types of opportunities and exposures played in where you are now and kind of getting your name out there.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate to always have teachers that encouraged me. I remember at the time I was really, really lucky in Pittsburgh. Sean Jones happened to be teaching at Duquesne, a school in Pittsburgh. He was living in Pittsburgh at the time. I was in like junior high. And this was when he was playing with Lincoln Center. He had just put out his first record with Mac Ave, and he was really kind of like had burst onto the scene. And it felt kind of crazy to me that this world-class trumpet player just happened to be, teaching at a small school in Pittsburgh. And, what a great resource for me. And he was always the one that was saying, hey, here's this summer program at Vail. I'm going to recommend you for this. Hey, here's this competition with the, International Trumpet Guild, check this out. And, at that time, I had my own doubts. I was still in my bubble in Pittsburgh. So I was gigging around the city in Pittsburgh, but I didn't know, I hadn't met a lot of other people my age that were that serious about the music. I didn't know where I stood, certainly. And he always was saying, man, just send in a tape. Just send in a tape. The hardest part of an audition for anything is, the part where you have to audition, after that, it's out of your hands. You never know. So that really was imparted on me. And it was like, I always send in a tape, and I had no shame about it too. If there was a competition that, if you came in second or third, they let you do it the next year, I'd show up 3 years in a row, until I could win it. Because I feel like those moments make you stronger too, as a player and as an artist, just being in those kind of pressure situations. It's like the idea of pressing pressure on the piece of coal, turning it into a diamond, Yeah. And I'm a competitive cat. So I also, relished that kind of aspect of it.
Motherfuckers are going down.
Right. Yeah, I know. I feel like you're never supposed to say that. You're just like, oh, kumbaya, music, it's all love. It's not a competition. No, you want to win if you're in a competition. Like when I won the Caruso competition and I knew I was getting $10,000 when I was 21 years old, I was like hyperventilating backstage. That was the coolest thing that ever happened to me, And like you said, every opportunity to be in front of more people, to, not just to talk about prize money or things like that, but, the judges for all of these competitions are always people that are big figures in the music. And, it's just another opportunity to get your name out there. So why not? That's what I say. I was just working with a kid back in Pittsburgh a week ago. I was back there for Christmas and we did a lesson and he was preparing for some audition. And I was like, man, just send in a tape. I was just echoing that those words that were given to me.
Yeah, bro. That's powerful, man. Man, I'm sitting here listening to you, Benny, and I want to ask you this question, man. And you got to answer this truthfully. And first, I want to say this, Greg. All trumpet players are the same. All these motherfuckers, all they do is try to pipe each other. But that everybody listening, every trumpet player is the same, even if they pretend to be humble.
No, not at all.
Because every instrument has a personality. My people who listening to this got to know. So
I agree with that. I appreciate you speaking.
Well,
for
you
me.
guys know too many trumpet players. I can't lie.
But man, what do you think makes you unique? Like, how are you different than every other person on this planet?
Wow. Well, that's a really deep question, but I appreciate that question. I mean, musically, to put it in the most brass tacks, get it? To get down to brass tacks in that way, I would say playing wise, I've always been attracted to harmony within kind of like bebop and post-bop language. So one of the things that younger players, that people that want to come take a lesson, or people that have checked me out a little bit, they always say, man, you have so much language. Like playing, standard tunes, playing harmony over that, just having a deep kind of pool vocabulary to pull from, where I'm not playing the same, diminished lick every time over the same part of the tune, and I do kind of pride myself on that, because that's a product of just putting in work, right? And doing a lot of transcribing. Every time I would transcribe a solo, that's 2 or 3 licks that, I'm now kind of throwing into my gumbo mixed up with everything else that is an influence. So, I don't want to play the same licks. I want to have 100 options. I kind of talk about improvising as like speaking a language, and the more words in your vocabulary, the more expressive you can become. If you only know how to say 5 things, it's going to get pretty redundant. So what makes me different, maybe in that way, I really, I try to really have a lot of language, but beyond just kind of the like X's and O's of the playing, I would say one thing that I think I try to do on my trumpet is to be, expressive and sound like a voice. And I think because I sing too, those things really kind of feed into each other. So I don't ever want to feel like if I'm playing a melody on the trumpet, that there are just notes that are kind of like MIDI notes, like don't ever have me play a quarter note and just have it be like, just hit a button. It's like, burn. There's always some way to color a note, because if we're a singer, you're always being expressive. So, I like to think that there's some humanity in my trumpet playing, it's not robotic.
And how much of that comes from the fact that you're also a fantastic singer? Is that like a translation of the voice, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is, because, things that I scat and the way I phrase as a singer, and listening to a lot of singers play melodies influences the way I play the trumpet, and vice versa, and I always tell students too, even if you don't have, the world's greatest gift from God as far as a singing voice, to still check out singers and check out the way they phrase, especially instrumentalists like guitarists or pianists, or instruments where it's not a wind instrument. And as a vocalist, you have no resistance, right? So if you're playing a wind instrument, like you're playing the trumpet, you're getting resistance. So theoretically, that air pushing back, you're going to have more in your tank than if you're just singing outright. There's nothing stopping that air from coming out. So hearing the way a singer phrases, dealing with that breath control is really valuable for all instrumentalists, You know
what, man? This is a great time for us to hear you sing, man. We're gonna see if you as good as you say you are right now.
Oh no! All right, let me just turn on the auto tune here. I have a plugin. I have a Zoom plugin.
Oh the hell no! We don't do that over here, y'all. So this is a track from you sent us a track over from your latest record.
Oh no, it's Gravy, right?
Gravy
Waltz.
Gravy Waltz. All right, here's Gravy Waltz, y'all. Let's check it out.
Pretty mama's in the kitchen this glorious day. Smell the gravy simmering nearly half a mile. Lady morning glory, I say good morning to you. Chirpy little chickadee told me that my baby was true. Well, she really ran to get her frying pan when she saw me coming. Gonna get a taste before it goes to waste. This honey bee's humming. Mr. Weeping Willow, I'm through with all of my faults. 'Cause my baby's ready to do the gravy waltz.
Don't nobody want to hear a bass solo. Let's be
Yeah.
Even if it's Christian McBride.
Yeah, right. Well, there might be one guy they might want to hear.
If it's Christian, right? We don't want. No, I'm just joking. Hey, Christian,
Right.
come on the show for real. No.
Yeah, right. Oh man.
Meg, if we could dig into this for 1 second too, man, I teach at an arts high school, and one of like the biggest hurdles that I have as a teacher is convincing students that you have to learn vocabulary in order to improvise. And when Darrian asked you the question about what makes you unique, you responded by I learn vocabulary, I'm learning language, I'm transcribing. So like, do you like what makes that unique is when, again, like how do you get over the self-doubt or the idea that like by learning licks or learning solos, that is actually how you create a unique vocabulary versus like regurgitating some shit someone else played.
Right. I mean, I think that is that's something that kind of makes me chuckle when I hear, younger musicians, which also it sucks that I'm saying younger musicians because that implies that I'm old now.
Join the club, man. It's all good.
But when these damn kids start showing up to these jam sessions and they can't play, no, it's like, I understand. I get sort of like the idea of the artist where you want to say something unique, right? You want to have a unique voice. That's all you ever hear when you're, in master classes growing up with jazz. Is like, well, you have to develop your own voice, you have to find your own thing. Right. And I know, young people that would say, hey, transcribe this Freddie Hubbard thing or transcribe this Clifford Brown thing. And they'd be like, well, I don't want to play licks, man. I don't know. Like, I don't want to play licks. Like, I'm trying to say something that's never been said before. And, I feel like that's all good and well. And of course, we want to do those things, but it's kind of like you got to walk before you can run, and if it goes back to what I was talking about, you think of these words like vocabulary, right? And you think of improvising as a language. It's like, you got to learn your grammar first. You have to learn where the adverbs go and where the nouns go. And it's, you can learn these kind of things theoretically. You can learn them out of a book. You can, visualize them and say, okay, D minor 7 flat 5 to G7 sharp 9 flat 13. All right, so I guess I could use this scale. Like, that works, but it just, to me, it seems like the most direct, streamlined process is just straight from the source. If you want to sound good on a blues, go learn someone's solo that sounds good on a blues, and then when you have all of this language at your disposal, then you can start the editing and filtration process. And you can say, hey, what if I took this thing that I learned from Lee Morgan and I like retrograded it? What if I did it backwards, or, hey, so here's this Woody Shaw thing. What would that sound like if I like played that in diminished, going up and down in minor thirds? And now it's like, now you're playing something that is, that is you, but it is informed from somewhere else, So I've also never been afraid to sound like my influences and sound like my heroes. One of my artistic goals has never been completely reinvent the wheel and say something on the trumpet, bring the language of jazz trumpet further than it's ever gone before, and I have so much respect for people that is one of their artistic goals. For me, it's that is not, my North Star. For me, it's just like, sound great all the time, like just make great music, take great solos, serve the band, serve the music. I'm not concerned with whether people view me as, a revolutionary or not.
Hey man, that's great advice. Sound good.
Just sound good. Just sound good. I mean, Benny, this notion of finding oneself is always perplexed and annoyed the shit out of me. Just because, like, I don't really believe that that's true, and a lot of times I think about the people who play the biggest impact in my life, like for instance Ellis or Al. Like they never seem to have to find themselves, like they just were them, or Miles, people like that. You just have to step into who you are and not really give a fuck what anybody else thinks. You know what I mean? Because one day Worms is gonna eat all of us, dog. It's all good. Just be you and share it and shut the fuck up. That's how I feel about life.
Yeah,
like,
right.
2022, y'all. The pandemic out here, dog.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like that sometimes where I'm like, okay, like, you're searching for something, and you're searching for playing the right chords to this song right now, bro. Like, I don't know, like, it's cool if you want to, like, find something that's never been played before, but like, you should probably not fold on this tune while you're at it.
Yeah, like, it's cool. It's one of these, like, I don't know why there's like this myth in jazz that like you got to play something that's never been played before in order to play a good solo. Like, no, just sound good. That's all 81 wants, is just to listen to the music and be like, damn, that sounds good.
Right. And I remember having this conversation with John Riley, the drummer from the Vanguard Orchestra, who was one of my professors at the Manhattan School of Music, and he got to play some with Art Farmer. And he said one of the things he asked Art Farmer about was like, hey, man, it's so incredible that at the time you were coming up, you and all your contemporaries, like, you guys all came up at the same time, that you sounded all just completely unique and so different, like you and Blue Mitchell and Donald Byrd and Lee Morgan and Clifford Brown and Freddie, like, all of you guys just sound like you've created this, your own branch from which other people have studied. How did that happen? And Art Farmer was like, oh man, yeah, I mean, we all pretty much just wanted to play like Fats Navarro. And so that's crazy, but it's really deep, because it's like everyone is going to be unique just inherently, just because you're you, and there's only one you in the history of everything, so don't get caught up in being like, oh, I don't want to sound too much like this guy or that guy. It's like, look at the way, 6 kind of like goats of jazz trumpet were all kind of like drinking from the same well, and they still ended up sounding completely different and unique. Hey
man, I want to ask you a question. I'm gonna change the subject, man. Hey man, how much you pay Christian McBride to be on your record, man?
Yeah, well, it was really pretty easy. I sent one email. I said, "Boop." Oh man, it's been redacted. I'm sorry. Jazz house kids are not allowed to, not at liberty to speak about. No, you know what? I will tell you this. I won't say the exact number, but I will say that Christian was a huge, he really did me a solid. And I was fortunate on that record to have Ulysses playing drums, Ulysses Owens Jr., who has been like a huge mentor figure to me, a real big brother musically. And he also produced that record. So when I expressed to him, I want McBride on the record, Ulysses really just walked me through it. He said, well, if McBride likes you, you're going to throw out a number, and as long as it's not insulting, he's going to say yes. And he's going to do you that one as a solid, because he knows what lending his name to something can do. And he, wants to support you. Then if you come back and ask him to play something a second time, then it's like the friend discount, the favor is over. So, I haven't finished that part of the prophecy. I don't know exactly, but I will say that, getting a chance to do an album with someone like that, it really makes you understand why they are where they are, just the level of professionalism, from the attitude from the 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on a record date, and, disarming everyone, cracking jokes at the right time, focusing at the right time, not making any mistakes, reading music perfectly, just kind of like 10 out of 10 in every category you could possibly fathom, really makes you appreciate kind of what that greatness is, and then on top of that, to know that he's kind of doing me a favor by doing the record and, lending his talents to that project, and, wanting to support, younger cats coming up. So right. I can't say enough about that. And, Ulysses also really was instrumental in kind of guiding me through that.
Absolutely. That's beautiful.
Something that like Darrian, both Darrian and I really tried to instill in the students that we work with, is that, we are artists, but we also are running businesses. And so as you're talking about working with Christian and someone like Ulysses Owens, how much of that decision to have those cats on the record is a musical decision, and how much of that is a business decision?
I mean, that's a good question. It's something that, that maybe doesn't get said out loud as much, but is something that is a part of every calculation when you're working on a project. And you hope that there's a perfect marriage of the two, where, you know, obviously in the case of someone like Christian McBride, I want him to play on the record, not because, you know, he might talk about it on Jazz Night in America, but because he's the bass player that, you know, I've looked up to my entire life, and I wanted to have that musically, you know. But there are always kind of certain situations, and whether it's recordings or in bands, you know. And one of the amazing favorite things that some musicians like to do when they're sitting around talking shit is, you know, be like, why do you know, he didn't call me for this gig, why did he call that cat? Or, you know, he's only calling that cat because XYZ, you know. And of course I never do that at all. I never talk shit at all, you know. Just an absolute just angel, and I just love everyone. But, you know, like I said, there are some times where, you know, it can't hurt to, you know, maybe not have that be the loudest voice in your head, but also just to be aware of it, you know, to think, hey, who's someone that I want to work with, you know? Oh, wow. Like this person works a lot as a sideman. Like, who are they playing with? What are they doing? Hey, you know what? I have a gig that needs a second horn. Maybe I'll call that person, you know, maybe I'll foster that relationship. Now, is it because you think they're a great player? Well, yeah, sure. But is it also because, you know, you're hoping that you can maybe pick their brain a little bit, or they'll get the chance to hear you, and in turn, they might call you for something or recommend you for something? Sure. You know, and I think in our business, where, you know, people aren't looking at resumes of where you got your degree from, or, you know, looking at LinkedIn to decide how you get a gig, it really is based on, you know, people's kind of opinions of you and how they're people you've worked with. So that just is kind of part of networking. You know, you don't have to be ashamed to think, hey, it might be in my best interest to give this guy a call. You know, can't hurt.
Isn't it funny, man? You know, when the cat CEO at Wheaties, you know, you get Michael Jordan on or Kobe on the box, you don't think twice about it. It's like this Wheaties, you know, it's okay. But if I put Mike on the cover, you know,
right.
It's kind of the same thing. Like we got to, as musicians, jazz musicians especially, we kind of got to get out of that whole vibe of like, you know, self-sabotage.
Yeah.
If I have access to Winton or somebody with some clout, Cecile McLaurin, some, you know, the top tier, why not get them on a song or two if it's going to get 1,000 more eyes on my record, you know?
Right. And I mean, I think where you can run into trouble is if you kind of, like I said, you let that be the guiding force, and you say, hey, you know, let me get this cat that maybe is the last person that would fit on this tune. Or, you know, if it just is purely, you know, kind of like a cop out, sell out kind of thing, I think people see through that, you Absolutely. Know, but that's why you want to try and thread that needle where, you know, if obviously you're talking about someone like Winton or Cecile or Christian McBride, you know, you're getting the best of both worlds. But, you know, it's just all criteria that we all, like it or not, have to consider, because, you know, we're all kind of advocating for ourselves out here, you know. So don't be shy, you know. You gotta scrap and claw, and sometimes that means, you know, putting your business hat on in addition to your musician hat, you know.
For your business, like what's the thing that is the most challenging for you from a business perspective?
You know what, I the thing that I struggle with the most, believe it or not, is knowing my worth with like booking shit, knowing how much money to ask for. And I'm such a people pleaser, you know. It's like such a cornerstone of who I am, is that I feel guilty anytime I hit up a club owner or a promoter or a booker. Like sending that email, I'm like, my palms are sweating. Even if this person is my friend in a real way, I'm just like, oh God, I don't want to bother them. Like, am I really going to send a Facebook message to Spike? Like, so many people probably hit him up to play at Smalls. Like, I don't know. Like, is he going to, like, I only hung there 17 times this month. Like, I don't know. Is he going to think that I just want a gig and I'm not really his friend? You know, these things come through my mind. And I'm sure to someone else, you know, that's like just moved to New York and is a freshman and, you know, comes to see me play at Smalls or something, the idea that I could be freaking out over sending a club an email about booking a gig, you know, might seem silly to them, but I've never been able to shake that. Whether it's me walking into a bar on my corner to play a jam session for $50, or it's me approaching someone from a European jazz festival asking for thousands of dollars. You know, I get the same anxiety about it. And I've just like, I have like this reoccurring fantasy that I'm going to get a booking agency and they can just do that for me, because that is really the one part of the one man operation that just makes me lose sleep at night. I hate asking people for things, you know, and I got to get over it. And I you know, I've had to, and I need to know my worth. I can't be taking these tours and these gigs that are taking years off my life, and I'm not getting the bread that I deserve, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
You're preaching to the choir, man. Like that's literally like every time Darrian's like, "Yo, hit this cat up." I'm like, man, you know, like I don't really know. I go through the same process, man.
I know it's stupid. I know it's irrational, but it's just like that little, you know, that little guy in my brain he starts yelling at me every time I have to be in that situation.
As someone who is just meeting you this evening and has been kind of following you online and things like that, it's again, it's like it always blows my mind to have opportunities to talk to cats, to hear you like kind of like speak about the inner process when I've only had the opportunity to see what the final product looks like. And I really, in what you just said, you're hitting cats up for gigs. You're asking European people, you know, you're hitting up Smalls and asking to play and things like that. And I think one of the biggest myths that young musicians have is that they're just going to be killing, and then all of a sudden Smalls is going to call you. All of a sudden North Sea is going to give you a ring. All of a sudden Jack Winton is going to call and be like, hey, you know, like I follow you on Instagram and I want you to play Very Sex. Man, could you talk about that too? Like, again, like how maybe we have to be proactive to create these opportunities?
Well, you know, the first thing I would say is it doesn't happen all the time, but that does happen for some people. And I, you know, I long ago have let go, you know, of the kind of the vindictive feelings and the jealousy to say, man, this cat got his golden ticket. He hasn't been out of school for 5 minutes and he's already got this gig. He's on the road. Like, he hasn't paid his dues. This cat doesn't hang. Why does he get this gig? You know, all of those thoughts do cross my mind. And what I say to younger people is that, yeah, like there are actually instances where somebody sees a video, and, you know, I have a friend of mine that she's on the road with Jacob Collier right now, playing these huge stadiums. And he like saw a video of her on Instagram and DM'd her and was like, hey, do you want to sing with me and go on tour? And, you know, things like that do happen. You know, there are cats that just get chosen. Their number gets called, you know, they get plucked. And you have to be prepared for that moment, for that situation. And if it happens to you, great. But, you know, it's something that my mom is a music theater vocalist to professor at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. And every year, all of these seniors graduate from Carnegie Mellon, which is like the North Carolina Duke of, you know, basketball equivalent of music theater. So it's like they're the powerhouse. So you have 15 kids graduating every year. They all immediately get signed to an agency, either move to New York or LA. And half of them are booked on a Broadway show like the first week that they move to New York, you know, and they're off. They're just in Broadway shows for, you know, the next 20 years. And then the other half of those kids can't book anything and end up, you know, doing a spin class and working at a coffee shop and whatever. And you know what? All 15 of those kids are completely equally deserving of that golden ticket. But for whatever reason, these 7 got it the first week they moved to New York, and the other 8 might not get it. They might have to do the spin class for 10 years before they get that call. But, you know, I always just say the only way you lose the game is to quit. You know, and even if it's a slow burn, just surviving in New York City in the scene and just showing up and being around, you know, those kind of like building blocks will come. And those are ones that I've like built on a solid foundation. So those aren't the ones that are built on a house of cards that you get a gig right out of school right away. It's your first gig and you think that the world is your oyster, and then every gig ends and that gig's over. And now you haven't been hanging. Nobody knows who you are. You know, you were getting fat off your one gig. It's like, that's not a solid foundation to build. So, I always stress to people, you have to be your own advocate. You have to go and hit these people up. You have to hang, you have to like act as though you're the underdog. And then when you get a blessing, when you get an email or a text message or a call from someone and you feel like you're getting some huge opportunity, those are great and we celebrate those. But, the work is done in between those kind of like, miracle gigs that come down the pipeline fleetingly. The real work is done kind of in the trenches, night after night.
Man, that story reminded me. So I had this gig, this recording gig at this random place in the city, completely random. Just so happened they were having auditions for some Broadway show. All right. So I heard 100 people. I counted them. There was probably 500 people in the hallway who I didn't hear, and all of them were amazing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how do you choose? You know what I mean? There's one gig, there's 700 people here. And they were all great. I'm talking about like some of the best you ever heard in your life. And that's just the industry that we're in, man. Like everybody is great, but 1% is going to get the opportunity. So you got to figure out, how in the hell am I going to stand out? Like how do I stick out in this crowd? What's unique about me? And I think that's the secret. And also the biggest secret I learned in business school, man, never meet a stranger, shake everybody's hand, smile, be nice,
Absolutely, man.
And don't quit. I like that too, because then the cat with the gig decides to, have a family and move somewhere in the Midwest, and all of a sudden a gig opened up, and you need to be available to take that opportunity.
It really is a war of attrition. Like the longer you stick it out, the more chances you have for your lottery number to come up. And there are plenty of examples of that. Whether it's acting, you talk about someone like Bradley Cooper that didn't get it booked on anything till he was 35. And then, he stuck it out for 15 years and finally he got his break. Or even someone like, a cat that people love to talk shit on, but another guy that I look up to immensely that I just saw at the Blue Note last week, Chris Bodie, this cat that's like super commercially successful and popular that was kind of just a session cat and a jazz player and had a couple smooth jazz records until he was 35. He didn't have his big break where he was, playing Carnegie Hall and the Blue Note for a month until he was 35. So he wasn't just sitting around, graduating from Indiana for 15 years before that. He was working his ass off, and finally, he got his golden ticket, but it took a long time, but he didn't quit, So I'm still waiting for my golden ticket. I haven't quit yet. I'm still, I hope it's coming one of these days.
Just keep on doing. Like Delphio, you said, just keep on doing what you're doing, right, Greg?
Yes. Well, man, look, again, just being someone who's been watching you from the periphery, man, you're doing wonderful work. And I feel like, again, it's just a matter of time before we hit that golden ticket. And you know what? Sometimes the golden ticket's not all it's cracked up to be. And I think we all need to also just appreciate what we have now too. And it's a blessing to be in our 30s, playing good music with killing cats and making a living doing this. So I always remind myself about that.
Yeah, man, it's always good to keep that perspective, as the goals shift and every mountain you climb that there's a higher mountain, but it's good to remember hey, me 10 years ago would have signed on the dotted line to be exactly where I am right now. Even though I feel like today, I'm dark where I'm not, but if you have that perspective, it helps. It helps because the darkness does come no matter where you are, but it helps you combat it.
What do you do to overcome it? Because that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten more into kind of mental wellness and spirituality and things like that. I'm not really a religious person, but I do definitely believe in kind of the alchemy of the science of energy. And we all give off an energy, and the first thing is I think anyone that's in their early 30s, you know, you've seen enough memes on Instagram of like your 20s are where you like make a lot of friends, and then your 30s are where you make that group smaller, but they're the real friends. And like it's kind of like a stupid thing, but it is totally true, right? Like you're like amassing a network of people when you're younger, and then you get older and you're like, you know what? I don't need to be around this energy. I don't want to be, you know, forced to hang out with this cat who makes me feel this way. Like life is too short. I want to be surrounded by people that, you know, their energy vibes with mine, you know? And so in that way, I feel like my tribe of cats is so great and supportive. And that fuels everything, because, you know, I really have a bunch of good friends in this scene that I can lean on, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, other than that, it's kind of just run of the mill shit. You know, I like to work out because I like how that feels when I finish the gym, you know, and giving myself some nights off to just watch a football game or watch the Lakers, you know, and just chill, you know, because we gotta, if you're in New York, you know, that pressure is constantly like there's a ghost pushing you on the back slightly at all times, being like, no, keep going. And sometimes you have to push back and be like, no, I'm just not doing shit tonight because my body and my brain and my soul needs that.
Yeah, absolutely. Not feeling guilty about it. That's beautiful, man. Listen, man, we coming to the end, man. Before we go, I definitely want to give you an opportunity to plug all your stuff. You got a new Christmas record, plug your old record. You sell what do you sell? Something on your website, I'm sure, plungers and
I sell everything. Just send me an email, whatever you want. We can do it here at bennybenackjazz.com. Yeah, I mean, it's I did a joke. I still got some of his copies of this Christmas CD. Then I played a gig last night and I sang like White Christmas. I was like, it's right around the corner, folks. You know, so yeah, I just did a Christmas album. The track that we listened to was from my record that came out in January, right before the pandemic. So that still is relatively, you know, new. Yeah. And in fact, I'm still touring some of that music because, you know, we didn't get to tour after the record came out. So, you know, I have some projects, you know, recording projects that are always coming down the pipeline, but also working on like an etude book, you know, some education stuff. And as far as the website, other than the CDs, you know, I also got some t-shirts we're working on rolling out. I think I'm going to do vinyl for my next record. It seems like more people want to buy vinyl these days than who has a CD player, you know.
Nobody.
That's a whole other discussion. Nobody except for jazz radio DJs.
Yeah, that's it. I don't even have a CD player. So.
Yeah, man. You know, but you know, I make it super obnoxiously easy to find where I am next and what I'm doing. So it's bennybenackjazz.com. The IG, I live on my Instagram, for better or for worse, it's bbjazz III. And you know, I'm if I'm not on the road, I'm always hanging in New York. So always, like you said, never want to meet any strangers at these gigs. So if anybody's listening and you want to come find me in New York, you know, I'll give you a handshake or an elbow, you know, whatever the current CDC guidelines are, you know.
If you email me, I'll give you Benny's phone number and his social security number. So just...
there you go. I'm on 10 dating apps. So if anyone wants to set their location to New York, get your radius.
Wait a minute.
Radius set.
Find Benny on OK Cupid. Is that still...
There you go. That's a good one. Come on. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I met my wife, man.
Hello.
All right, y'all.
On that note, Benny, man, it's been a pleasure getting to hang with you this evening, man. I wish you the very best and hope we get a chance to play and hang again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Cats, and love what you guys are doing, and keep it up, man. Keep it going.
Thanks, bro. All right, y'all. This is the Working Artist Project. My name is Darrian Douglas.
My name is Gregory Agid, and we'll catch you all on the next episode.